goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
There. Whoa. Hello and welcome. We're our usual halting beginning here. Okay, it's okay. It's okay now. It was all staticky. Hi! This, ladies and gentlemen, is the first week of a full week of Lynn Cullen actually live. Thank you, God. Live, right, that we're going to get all the way through without me ending up in any emergency rooms, operating rooms, or anything like that, okay? Let's do it. Oh, well, that exhausted me. Oh, man. All right. I know you're all, your Steeler fans are bummed, but isn't it interesting? I've pointed this out many times. After the Steelers lose on Sunday, Mondays are always dreary. They're drearier. It's true. I've been noting this for years. It's odd. Okay, I got so much to talk about here, I don't even know where to start. And I'm not quite sure where your heads are, so let's just, I'll just start up and see what the heck ends up happening. That's usually what we do. Here's my favorite story. Malaysia Airlines. Now, you'll recall Malaysia Airlines. I did not have a good year myself, but they did not have they even had a worse year. They had 2 planes, one shot down over Ukraine, right? And one that still hasn't been, oh, it's so awful. I mean, really, the one that still has not been found. So, some genius at Malaysia Airlines tweeted a year-end promotional campaign this weekend. And here's what the tweet said. Want to go somewhere, but don't know where? That's the tweet from Malaysia Airlines. Now, for an airline who doesn't know where one of their planes with 100 and God knows how many passengers on it is, I don't think this is a good tweet. Want to go somewhere but don't know where? Well, I'll tell you, we're the airline for you because we don't know where we're going to end up either. Oh, my God. They later apologized. Social media, it's tricky. It's tricky. Okay, best news. And you might have missed this, or maybe it didn't get as much play as it should, but good heavens. Do you remember something called the Upper Big Branch mine. You remember that? West Virginia, what would be the year? 2010. You remember that? 29 miners in West Virginia dead, killed, murdered, essentially, by management. Now, never in West Virginia history, you can check that on me, double check that, but I think it's true. Never in West Virginia history has the owner of a mine ever faced criminal charges for the loss of life in one of his mines, despite the fact that fact finders going in after the bodies have been removed have found outrageous conditions that in fact did create the explosion or the fire or the flood or the cave-in, whatever hideous manner these men died, and attributed it to the company not following normal safety regulations. But no owner has ever been criminally charged until now. And the guy who got charged is the worst SOB in the universe. That they finally have charged this guy is such great news. All you have to do is look at him. He looks like he should have been a part of his visage, his face. You look at him, he looks like he would have fit in just beautifully with a picture of Hitler's inner circle. That's what he looks like. His soul emanates right through his face. Now, Blankenship Donald was the owner of the Upper Big Branch mine when these 29 men died, were murdered, essentially. And lesser people under him have been tried and convicted, but no one in their wildest dreams thought they'd ever get him. He's now been charged. He has not, of course, been found guilty, and that will maybe take some doing. But the fact that he is going to have to stand trial is unbelievable. He was accused in the indictment by the federal government of absolutely disregarding all health and safety laws in the pursuit of profit. He was charged with conspiring to hide violations from inspectors. He kept 2 sets of books about inspections and other things that were happening. He lied on securities filings. If he's found guilty, he ain't ever getting out of prison. Now, this is a guy, if you follow the horrors of West Virginia politics and West Virginia power plays, this is a guy who was at the top. Blankenship is the guy who, when he didn't like the makeup of the West Virginia Supreme Court, and he had a pretty important case coming up before it, he's the guy who counted the justices and saw one who was probably going to screw him up from what it was he needed to get done. And so he spent $3 million essentially buying that justice's seat for somebody else. And lo and behold, after he got the court configured like he wanted it to be, the court found for him. And in an appeal for a $50 million judgment against his company, the West Virginia Supreme Court turned just like that. The vote was 3-2, exactly as he'd planned it. The majority included the justice that his $3 million had bought. And the pièce de résistance, I don't think I pronounced that properly, was a photograph of Blankenship and the Chief Justice of the West Virginia Supreme Court on a beach, vacationing together on the French Riviera just 4 months before. The Supreme Court of the United States took the case that resulted and reversed the 3-2 ruling and told West Virginia, your court is totally corrupted. But Blankenship continued to ride high. He grew up poor in Mingo County, one of the God-forbiddenest places in this country. Poorest. And yes, he pulled himself up by the bootstraps to become the biggest SOB in the state. He built a mansion there in Mingo County with a helipad and all kinds of other things. No one else lived in anything but a trailer. And he even piped in clean drinking water to his home. Well, because his his mines, had sort of poisoned the wells of his neighbors. This guy, according to the New York Times, is like right out of a Dickens novel. He is that flat out awful. He was known as a union buster. He intimidated everybody. If you had a complaint, you didn't voice it, because to voice it was to... Levels of coal dust were so high, and that, by the way, is what causes explosions and accelerates fire. Levels of coal dust in his mines were so high that autopsies on the dead men in the Upper Big Branch mine showed their lungs were so blackened. In fact, 71% had already black lung disease, even though many of them were young men. That is compared, by the way, with an industry average of 3%. If you worked in Blankenship's mine, it was 71%. If you worked for him, God help you. He demanded a report every 30 minutes, nights and weekends included, to be faxed to his home, tallying up how much coal was coming out of a section of that Upper Big Branch mine, because it was one of his most profitable. Every half hour, somebody had to give him the new numbers and send them. Every half hour, 24/7. He overrode any manager who had the guts to come to him and ask if they could strengthen the roof or if they could install a ventilation system. And he would explode and say, "We're not running some construction company here. We're mining coal. And after one of the passageways in that mine flooded so badly that a federal inspector shut it down, fearful that any miners would drown if they had to go anywhere near it, he simply ordered his people, open that back up, and they're going in. So he went like this to the mine safety and health inspectors. And he had reason to believe he was more powerful than them. So the feds finally rose up, and they have indicted him. Now what they got to do is put this awful, murdering human being away for the rest of his life. Keep an eye out on that one. I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more attention. We have a call? Hello, caller.
Hi, Lynn. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
I don't want to bring this up about Ferguson again. I just want to make one point about that. I know you've talked about it past on your show. But what I don't understand with the police is their common sense approach to things. For instance, this thing that happened, okay, they got in a fight. Let's say that. And if the guy would have shot him in the car, that to me would have made sense in self-defense. They say it's a felony if you assault a police in Missouri law. I understand.
Yeah.
But my problem is going after the man, the kid after that. And why couldn't you just say, to hell with it? We'll pick him up later. He's only robbed a convenience store. It's not that big of a deal. He's acting like this kid's out there as a mass murderer, and he's got to get him right then and shoot him down, but he's going to kill somebody else, which he didn't have that capability. He didn't have a gun. He didn't have a knife. It didn't make sense to me to go after him. You could call for backup. There's so many things you can do, but this guy used no common sense.
Exactly. And what you're pointing out is exactly what is so maddening. There's no way that Michael Brown needed to end up dead. What this police officer did was jump to the most lethal possible way, and in fact to the most aggressive way of dealing with a situation that could have been, yes, he could have backed up, but here's what I think took over. He said he was terrified, right? He said he was scared out of his mind of Michael Brown. So then you'd wonder, well, then why did he go after this terrifying monster, as he described him?
Exactly.
Well, I think what happened was human nature. It became personal.
Yes.
And it became a sort of, he couldn't call for backup or look like he was retreating because I think his sense of masculinity would have been harmed. Don't you think?
I do too, now that you say that, yes.
Yeah. So I think that's what happened. It's like he couldn't.
And another thing, if he's charged at him, why couldn't he shoot him in the kneecaps? I mean, come on.
Because they don't.
You don't have to kill him.
I agree, but police procedure is shoot to kill.
Yeah, I know. They want to go home at night.
He was already riddled with bullets. He could have outrun the guy. For God's sake. I mean, where does just common sense come in?
Yeah, they lack common sense.
Or a reverence for life. Or a reverence for black life.
I'll give you an example, too. These police chases. The guy robs a convenience store. The police chase after him. They ruin property. They almost kill some. Sometimes they kill people over somebody that robbed the convenience store.
Right.
Let it go.
Let it go. Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye. And I was glad to see Brian O'Neill over the weekend taking up one of my pet peeves, which is the overuse, the absurd overuse of SWAT teams. What used to be, just serving a warrant. Now they call out 28 guys in masks and, armed to the teeth. And it's insanity. Our police departments have got to pull back. We got a good chief here now whose intent is to do just that. And let's make sure we stand with him. Okay? Jared Day, the guy who comes on every once in a while, former CMU history professor, to talk about things in a historical context, sent me something that just blew my mind. It's a speech that was given by President Dwight Eisenhower in 1953. So, okay, let's try to think of American history. Dwight Eisenhower, he'd been the big Allied commander in World War II, right? The big general. And then he came home, took off his Army gear, and was made the President of the United States twice. Very few people appreciate his presidency. I have come, the more I've read about it, to appreciate it very much. And let me read to you a little part of this speech he gave. You would no more hear a president say these things now. You would not. This guy is a straight shooter. And no one hated war more than this man. Because, well, you can finish the rest of that sentence. So he's talking to this group. And the Cold War had replaced the big war. Our allies in World War II, the Russians, we never would have won that war without the Russians, without the Soviet Union. Never, ever, ever. It's been said, I don't know who said it, that World War II was won by Russian blood and American money. I don't know. That's a simplistic kind of a thing. But no one gave more blood than the Soviet Union. We would not have won that war without them. And it's sort of sad that after the war's end, we started a new war, a scarier war. It was called the Cold War. It was a war of mutually assured total annihilation. It involved atomic weaponry. And so, Dwight Eisenhower speaking in the spring of 1953, and this speech was called the Chance for Peace speech. And I'm only going to read this little bit to you because it's mind-blowing. Can you imagine a president saying this to an audience now? Here's what he said. The worst to be feared and the best to be expected about the world now, he said, can be simply stated. The worst is atomic war. The best would be this: a life of perpetual fear and tension, a burden of arms draining the wealth and the labor of all peoples, a wasting of strength that defies the American system or the Soviet system or any system to achieve true abundance and happiness for the peoples of this earth. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed. A theft from those who are cold and are not clothed. The world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick schoolhouse in more than 30 cities. It is 2 electric power plants, each serving a town of 60,000 people. It is 2 fine, fully equipped hospitals. It is some 50 miles of concrete pavement. We pay for a single fighter plane with 500,000 bushels of wheat. We pay for a single destroyer with new homes that could have housed more than 8,000 people. This is, I repeat, the best way of life to be found on the road the world is currently taking. This is not a way of life at all, in any true sense. Under the constant cloud of threatening war, it is humanity hanging from a cross of iron. These plain and cruel truths define the peril and point the hope that comes with this spring of 1953. Dwight Eisenhower. A Republican. A general. An honest man and a straight talker. God. Can you imagine? I'm serious. Would a president give this speech today? The worst we can hope for is atomic war. The best would be this, a life of perpetual fear. That was the 2 things that he was suggesting. And Jimmy Carter got raked over the coals for putting on a sweater and suggesting that we lower our friggin' thermostats. What has happened to us? God. Dwight David Eisenhower. Do not discount that presidency. In many respects, it was more liberal than Bill Clinton's and more liberal than Barack Obama's. I'm sure there's many ways it was not. Maybe we'll talk to Jared about it next time he's here. Jesus. All right. Geez, it's dark out there. Let me see what else. Oh! There are so many bizarre cases coming before, important cases coming before the Supreme Court. And they scare the hell out of me, these cases. Because given this court, and given the precarious health of the most liberal member of the court, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what a spunky, amazing, she can't weigh more than 60 pounds. She beat colon cancer. She beat pancreatic cancer. And she was just in the hospital last week because there was a whole part of her heart that was totally occluded. They stuck a stent in. She's home. So the Supreme Court's going to hear some really serious cases. I'm just going to tell you about one today, and it has to do with women and discrimination against women in the workplace. And this court has been pretty, I would say, predictable on these kinds of issues. And let's just put it this way, they don't side with the women. There's only 3 women on the court. The others are guys, and they don't get it. Okay, the case is coming because it was on appeal. Has to do with a woman who drives for United Parcel Service, UPS. She got pregnant. She was told by her doctor that she couldn't lift anything over 20 pounds. Well, if you're a UPS driver, you know, you got to lift something over 20 pounds. And so UPS simply said, okay, you're out. We'll put you on unpaid medical leave. Now, understand that in the contract that UPS has with its drivers, they will allow modifications to the work of a employee for people covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act, those with injuries that occur on the job, and get this, anybody who might lose their driver's license because of a DUI. If you lose your license because of a DUI and you're a UPS driver, they don't fire you. They don't put you on unpaid leave till you get your license back. They reassign you somehow. If you're a woman who gets pregnant and you drive a UPS truck, no accommodation. Too bad she didn't get drunk. So all she was doing, asking is, can I go on some lighter duty? I cannot pick up more than 20 pounds. So her case, obviously, this case has implications for millions upon millions of American women, present and future. It's going to be argued before the Supreme Court Wednesday. And I got to tell you, it makes me very nervous, this court. I don't see how you can find against her. I don't see how you could find for UPS. But the fact is that the court, the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, did find for UPS. And she appealed this, and the Supreme Court took it. Maybe that's a positive harbinger. I do not know. That's one case coming up. Watch it. Dave, on SWAT teams, my understanding is all this military-style equipment local cops have nowadays, if they don't use it within a year of receiving it, they have to give it back? I don't think that's true, David. Because the people who gave it to them don't want it. So why would they want it back? I don't think that's true. Unless you can back up that statement, I'm gonna continue to say I don't think that's true. So when time is running out, they break it out for mundane police calls. Sleepy little communities call the SWAT team with machine guns and tanks to answer a domestic disturbance call and piddly little crap like that. I don't think that's why. I think it's because they like to use it and because the cops in this country have talked themselves totally into a defensive crouch. They just feel, instead of, we're here to secure and protect you, nice people, they now have this us and them. And them includes all of us, but mostly if you're, them is mostly black people, poor people, brown-skinned people. White people don't feel it quite as much. But the cops have become real scaredy cats, if you ask me. The home of the brave. I am, from now on, and I will definitely do this because it'll stick in my throat. When I sing the national anthem, which I sing with gusto on occasion, I will not sing those last words because it is so clearly not true. If this is the home of the brave, I'd hate to see where the cowards live. Okay, am I the only one who had like a deja vu thing when I opened up my Saturday local paper and saw this? Examiner rules that molecular biologist died from cyanide. And I thought, well, what do you mean? I mean, her husband's already serving time. The trial. And then I went on. A molecular biologist, acute cyanide poisoning, official said Friday. And I thought, did some weird event happen where they accidentally printed a story from last year? It took me, I had to go back, start over, and read a lot more carefully because this is another UPMC female researcher, Nicole Kachi. And she was found to have died from cyanide. She was found unconscious near her desk at McGee Hospital. You know, if you were like writing crime novels, you could start having a field day here with young, female UPMC researchers dying of cyanide poisoning. I mean, that's not a normal kind of a finding in a death, cyanide poisoning. It's not easy to get. It's an awful way to die. Here are two young women researchers at Pitt, both dead in a year. One found to be homicide. This one, they don't know. They don't know. They're saying homicide is not a leading theory, but has not been eliminated. It's hard to believe anyone would choose to kill themselves with cyanide. That's all I'm saying. Okay. I've got something I need to get off my chest here. I'm not a big parade lover. All right? My son, came running into my room on Thanksgiving. Was it Thanksgiving? Yeah. Mom, he said, get up. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is on. Of course, he did this as a joke. I don't get them, parades. I've had to, believe me, I've seen some, and I've had to ride floats. I've even ridden on the back of a convertible doing, the Queen Elizabeth wave. You feel like a fool, like an idiot. So, I don't know what, my kid was home, so the TV was always on. All I know is I looked up at one point and I saw a parade, and this was in Pittsburgh. And then I realized, it's that parade that WPXI does every year, the WPXI Holiday Parade. And again, I thought to myself, who the hell goes to these things? Why would you go and look at fire trucks go by? Because that's what the parade's around here. You get to look at fire trucks or politicians. And every once in a while, which I like, a band might come by, which is nice. I like the bands. That's the only thing that ever seems to do anything. Everybody else is just... And fire trucks. So, imagine my astonishment. First of all, I noticed that the superintendent of Pittsburgh Public Schools, Linda Lane, who I follow on Twitter, was tweeting about the parade a lot. And I thought, that's odd. What the hell's she tweeting about that stupid parade for? And then I found out. I found this story. Maybe you guys know all this. I'm perennially out of it. I found the story in the Pittsburgh Courier. Turns out the Pittsburgh Public Schools was the sponsor of that stupid parade. Used to be sponsored by Macy's, Kaufman's. Used to be sponsored by Kaufman's, which then became Macy's. Macy's continued to sponsor it, but then I guess dropped it. How many Macy's parades are they going to bother doing? I can see the big one in New York, but why do this piddly one in Pittsburgh? How the hell? Some smart sales guy at PXI managed to sell the Pittsburgh Public Schools on sponsoring a parade? For what? They need money for education. They spent, get this, $200,000, which they gave to WPXI to sponsor that parade. Somebody help me here. Somebody help me here. What? What? Did that parade mean that one more kid would go to Pittsburgh Public Schools? How could that parade mean that? Did that parade mean that one family, maybe from the suburbs, decided to move into the city to take advantage of the Pittsburgh Promise and go to Pittsburgh? How the hell do you spend $200,000 on something like that? Here's what Ebony Pugh, the spokeswoman for the Pittsburgh Public Schools, said. The event helps promote the district's achievements and boost morale. You know, you could just do a big group hug, and that might boost morale too. Here's Ms. Pugh. This is all about making people feel good about where they work and where they attend school. And we think it will impact the teaching and learning environment. What? How? Ebony, how? Well, spending $200,000 and putting it in PXI's pocket. How? If the Pittsburgh Public Schools want to spend money on advertising, there'd be a much better, I can think of a campaign that would be much better than sponsoring a stupid-ass parade? When the odds are nobody even knows you did. We have a call. Hello there. Caller. Hi.
Hi, it's Susie.
Hi, Susie.
I was wondering about that.
You were?
Yeah. I mean, I went to the Pittsburgh Public Schools when they said they kind of had money. And my son went to the Pittsburgh Public Schools when they were losing, when they didn't have a whole lot of money. And I don't know. I think they could get maybe supplies, maybe textbooks, maybe pay for some teachers.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I know schools now, like, don't even have a full-time librarian, or they don't have enough guys to even clean up. The janitorial staff has been sliced to half. What the hell are they thinking?
Or they share a nurse with 6
Oh,
other
yeah,
schools.
exactly right. No, as my son,
God forbid.
I watched it decline as my son attended the schools. It was unbelievable. There was
my son went to Kappa, and it would take them. They had a little slush fund so that they could pay to get the instruments fixed. Because if they went through the proper system, they only had one guy who fixed instruments in the city. And it would take them 1 or 2 years to get an instrument fixed if they went through the proper channels.
Yeah, but you know what? Maybe you'll feel differently if I tell you this. Because the school board, Pittsburgh school board members, got to ride on a float.
Oh, my heart bleeds red borscht.
They had to have signed off on this. What the? Oh, goody! We get to ride on a float. That's worth $200,000. Unbelievable. Did you watch the parade? Did you watch the parade at all?
For a couple seconds.
Okay. Did you hear anybody? I mean, they must have. If it was a sponsor, then the people doing the play-by-play of the parade, I don't know if that's still David Johnson and Peggy Finnegan.
It was.
Okay, then they would have had to talk up at certain points the Pittsburgh Public Schools. That's the way it works. Oh, and here is, blah, blah, blah. They would have done that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that's
one
what
thing
they
that I purposely watched for was to see if they had bands from other neighborhoods.
Well, they had. I know Kappa had a band in there.
Yeah, well,
but they would have
had...
been. But Kappa could have been in that parade if Joe's tackle shop was. It doesn't matter. There were other school districts had bands in the parade. Sponsoring it doesn't get your bands in the parade. You can have the band in the goddamn parade. Excuse me.
Yeah.
What the hell? But Pittsburgh forked over $200,000. So their stupid school board could ride on a friggin' float and
money.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It makes you want to just scream, doesn't it?
And I did.
You did. Well, that makes two of us then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
I bleed red borscht. I never heard that one. God. I'm sorry. Did that story get covered? I didn't see that anywhere. The piece I saw in the Courier, I got from... It's because I think it was a tweet in the Courier put out, and it was an Associated Press story. But I read the Post-Gazette. Takes me now about 2 minutes, and I didn't see anything. Might have missed it, but I didn't see anything about this. And then God! Then there's a quote from the program director at PXI, Mark Barish, a gentleman I once worked for when I had a television show called Cullen on cable. Actually, it was a great show. I just ran out of steam because I was doing that in the morning and then running over and doing a 3-hour radio show. I think I've talked to you about that, but it was a good show. He said this. Barish declined to disclose the cost of producing the parade, but said it would have gone on even without a new sponsor. So, it's not like the Pittsburgh Public Schools saved the parade for Pittsburgh. No, they just threw out $200,000. Makes me crazy. How about if we get a break-in? I mean, I know it seems I'm just sick of talking and no one's calling me. So to hell with you all, and I'm taking a little break. Thank you.
Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown. Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty. Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
BurghBargains.com is your best bet for great deals in the Burgh. Check out the newly optimized site for quicker access to deals. Log on today for discounted gift certificates to Ibiza, P.F. Chang's, and Wildwood Highlands. Pittsburgh's best bargains, BurghBargains.com.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a pep talk that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You can improve your future. Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and for free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education, brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Download the popular CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh for the holidays. It's the free and fun app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win tickets to Trans-Siberian Orchestra and dinner to Sonoma. The CP Haps app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
All righty. Hello there. I think we have a caller. Caller, hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. wanted to talk to Lynn.
You're on and talking to her.
Oh.
Just like that. It is startling, isn't it? When
it is startling.
I never called.
I'm going to look away because
it's off. I never called the show before until Tom Sokolowski was doing it in my absence, and I called and I was stunned when he said hello. Because I was listening to a whole, it just was out of sync and stuff. It was very surprising. Anyway, hello.
Well, this is Jay. I'm a longtime listener, and our kids actually went together to school together at Linden years ago.
Huh.
The Pittsburgh Public School thing is just infuriating.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to stop, as a liberal, we have to stop idiots who spend money like this and give the GOP ammunition.
Yeah. Lots of
make
ammo.
us look like idiots, you know?
Yeah.
It was just like, that's it. You never get another campaign dollar.
Right.
You never run for office because you've made this stupid ass move.
Right. Did you know about this?
I read it this weekend, too. Yeah. It's just like, they're going to raise our taxes. They're going to raise our property taxes to pay for the school. And they pull a move like this. And it just provides ammunition for the other side. It's just so stupid.
Well, in fact, in the article I saw, there was a quote from a guy who, anytime I see his name, I know I disagree with him because he's the president of the Allegheny Institute for Public Policy, which is one of those Richard Mellon Scaife think tanks.
Yep.
And his name is Jake Hulk. And this is the first time a Jake Hulk quote could have come from my mouth because here's the quote. They're selling buildings. They've had layoffs. I mean, usually spending money on advertising is not something you think of a school district doing when it's complaining about not having enough money.
Yeah. After the farce with Frick and Shenley and everything else, I mean, it's just heartbreaking. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everyone is listening. The Pittsburgh Promise is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
Helping
and there's some wonderful teachers in schools, but not all of them. And this school board, I cannot believe what they did here. This is insane.
Yeah, again and again and again, they just make stupid decisions that make everyone question what the hell they're doing at the Pittsburgh Public Schools.
Right.
And it's painful to see good teachers suffer due to the results of stupid administration.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, guys, I have some other things here. None of them are particularly happy. I don't know if you thought the same thing I thought when you saw maybe a little story earlier maybe like on Wednesday or Thursday. There was a little item about some kid who played for Ohio State University football team had disappeared. It was just a little item. People looking for this guy. I think a freshman walk-on or something. No, he was a senior. Sorry. Senior, but a walk-on. Not a big part of the team, but on the team. And the little item said, I thought that's weird, and then the little item said that he had called his mother or sent his mother a text message, I think, saying that all the concussions he'd had made him, like just really depressed and feel like a loser. And I didn't see the text message, so I don't want to. But, and he apologized to his mother for being an embarrassment to her. And then his older sister was quoted as saying that he's had 4 or 5 concussions that they known of in his life. He wrestled as well as played football. And all I had to do was read that and thought he's dead. And he killed himself. Because that's like I apologize to my mom, I'm useless, I'm this. And of course, they did. They found him dead. Self-inflicted gunshot wound. This poor soul who was so depressed that he thought of himself as nothing more than a piece of garbage had actually crawled into a dumpster and then shot himself. Now, I hope this family does the autopsy. I hope the gunshot wound did not destroy too much of his brain. But I hope they can see if somebody this young already, because it sounds like he was suffering from that awful, awful disease that we now know comes from concussion, constant concussion, the one that is claiming so many football players, and I'm sure hockey players, and who knows who else. But this young, it's this kind of thing. And it is being reported now more and more and more. You open up, any magazine, newspapers, people are starting to zero in on this. And it is this that's going to potentially take football down. It's going to be the legal issue. It's going to be the legal liability. It won't be that fans will turn, although fans are turning away. But it won't be that, because it is such an addictive game and it is such a part of the culture. But this constant litany, and now it's not being ignored, this constant litany. If you start adding up the number of football players who had a history of concussion, who underwent all kinds of these behavioral changes, fall into incredible depression, and kill themselves, the list it's mind-boggling. And when you compare it to the general population, it's even more mind-boggling. It cannot be ignored anymore. Okay. As you know, my one-woman show benefited Planned Parenthood, and I also sit on the board of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, and I am privileged and honored to. As I said at the end of my show, just to make clear, the propaganda campaign against Planned Parenthood, the incessant, decades-long campaign against Planned Parenthood by the Republican Party, by the Catholic Church, by an awful lot of other very powerful entities, has been really extraordinarily successful. But here's the truth. Planned Parenthood is not about taking lives. It is about saving women's lives. It's as simple as that. So, because the idiot voters of this country continue to populate the state legislatures of this country with Republican majorities, state after state after state is seeing these unbelievably outrageous laws passed that are aimed at shutting down Planned Parenthood. That's all they're aimed at. Pennsylvania has already dutifully passed such a law and managed to shut down about half of the clinics available in Pennsylvania. A local chapter here, we had to raise over $300,000 to comply with all the picayunish bullshit that the Republican legislature all of a sudden said has got to be in the physical plant where any termination of a pregnancy occurs. They essentially said that Planned Parenthood had to be like a mini hospital. There were regulations that had absolutely nothing to do with the health of a woman. Nothing. Nothing. It's harassment and attempting to destroy these clinics by starving them. And it's worked. Because since the Republicans figured out this harassment tactic, states have passed 231 laws aimed at making it almost impossible to get an abortion. Now, what I want to know is if a woman has a right to an abortion but can't access it, how the hell is that a right? I'm afraid we're not going out well. Lynn, you have the best content but the worst technology. This is from Ray. 6 app interruptions so far. Oh. And let the tech people know I can stream a whole baseball game on this friggin' device, but your show is in and out again, Finnegan. Ray, thanks. Let me say that again in case that went out. Ray, thanks. Ray, thanks. Fuck. Excuse me. So, 231 laws these Republican goddamn legislatures have created just to deny women the right. So in the state of Texas, you can need an abortion, but you can't possibly get one, especially if you're a poor woman. If you're a poor woman, you cannot afford, because now they say you can't even get the abortion when you want it. You have to travel to a clinic, which might be, in fact, 800 miles. But you can't have it then, so you have to stay in a hotel. These women don't have the money to do that. We're back to the era of do-it-yourself abortion, guys. Right back where we started. There is a 20-year-old woman in Texas who has seen the need arise, and she has actually developed, I'm going to try to get her on the show, a 24-hour, she's available to women if they need money. She finds donors who will give money so women can fly out of the goddamn state to another place where they can stay for a week if they have to and have their abortion. Unbelievable. Okay, well, Ray, thank you. I will see that your message gets to the proper eyes, okay? Thank you for sending it. I appreciate it. That's it. Tomorrow, my sister Susan in St. Louis. God. And have a good day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.